Welcome to video tutorial part 2. This is going to pick up from page 5 and you are going to now be explaining the growth of new religious movements, and some of the explanations will be marginality, relative deprivation and social change. We'll look at the dynamics of a sect and a new religious movement and the growth of new age movements with a link to postmodernity. So since the 1960s, there has been rapid growth in the number of sects and cults and in the number of people that belong to them. So, for example, there is estimated to be over 800 new religious movements and over 500,000 individuals belonging to these and other non-mainstream Christian churches. Sociologists have offered 3 explanations: marginality, relative deprivation and social change. So as Troilsch and Max Weber noted, sects tend to draw their members from the poor and the oppressed, who are marginalised in society. These groups may feel that they are disprivileged, that they are not receiving their economic rewards or social status. So in Weber's view, sect offers a solution to this problem by offering their members a theodicy of disprivilege, a religious explanation or justification for their suffering. They explain their misfortune as a test of faith, and while holding out for the promise of rewards in the future for keeping the faith. Throughout the 20th century, there's also been other examples such as the Nation of Islam or Black Muslims, who have recruited successfully amongst the disadvantaged blacks in the USA. Now we can compare this with middle class, who are also attracted to some of these religious movements. So, for example, the Moonies have recruited from more affluent groups of well-educated young middle-class whites. So it's not all about poor people, okay, that are attracted to sects. Okay, we have got middle-class people as well. So there is your analysis. The second explanation is relative deprivation. This refers to the subjective sense of being deprived. This means it's perfectly possible for someone who is in reality quite privileged, nevertheless to feel that they are deprived or disadvantaged in some way compared to others. So, middle-class people who are materially well off, they may feel like they are spiritually deprived, especially in today's materialistic society. So Wallace argues that they may turn to a sect for the sense of community. Similarly, Stark and Bainbridge argue that it's relatively deprived who break away from churches to form the sects. For example, the deprived may stress Christ's claim that it's harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle, a message that the better off might want to play down. In contrast, the deprived might want to emphasise Christ's message, the meek shall inherit the earth. So Stark and Bainbridge argue that these world-rejecting sects offer to the deprived a compensator that they need for the rewards that they are denied in this world. On the other hand, the wealthy are don't need the reward in this world. They tend to go to world-accepting churches as opposed to world-rejecting, because they want to just foster further success within this world. The third explanation is social change. Now, Wilson argued that in times of rapid technological and industrial change and periods of anomie, individuals may turn to religious movements that offer security and certainty. So during the 18th century revolution, Methodism gave social solidarity to those that were feeling a period of anomie. Also, we've got Bowman, who's arguing that through a period of secularisation in a postmodern world, there is a crisis of meaning. So some might join a new religious movement to retain a sense of control. You could argue that there is a rise in religious fundamentalism, and because of the period of social change associated with globalisation and the media, there is an increased awareness of new religious movements, greater access through technology and televangelism, and also magazine horoscopes. Religion has become more fashionable. So overall, there is a growth in both cults and sects as a response to the social changes of modernisation and secularisation. In Bruce's view, society is more secularised. Therefore, people are less attracted to the traditional churches and the strict sects because they demand too much commitment. Instead, people prefer the cults because they are less demanding and require fewer sacrifices. So what about the dynamics of a sect and a new religious movement? So compared to the churches that have a history stretching over many centuries, sects, on the other hand, tend to be short-lived, frequently lasting only one generation. So sociologists are really interested in the dynamics of sect development. And Neighbour identified that world-rejecting sects come into existence because of schism. This is splitting from an established church over a disagreement of a religious doctrine. And that within that generation they either die out, or they compromise with the world, abandon their extreme ideas and become a denomination. And there are several reasons for this. Okay, and you just want to fill in a little bit of notes on page 7. So firstly, the second generation. The second generation who are born into that sect often lack the commitment and passion of their parents, who had consciously rejected the world and joined voluntarily. The second explanation is the Protestant ethic effect. Sects that practice asceticism, hard work and saving, tend to be prosperous and upwardly mobile, as was the case of the Methodists in the 19th century, like the Calvinists also. So such members then become tempted to compromise with the world, so they either leave or it will abandon the world-rejecting beliefs. And then thirdly, the last reason why a sect might die out is the death of a leader. Sect with a charismatic leader who is quite attractive and people follow that person will either collapse on that leader's death, or a more formal bureaucratic leadership takes over, which will then transform it into a denomination. So because of this, Stark and Bainbridge see religious movements actually moving through a cycle very similar to what Neighbour is actually saying. So just fill this in. In the first stage, there is schism. This is a tension between the needs of the deprived and privileged members of the church. The deprived members break away to find a world-rejecting sect. The second stage is initial fervour, with a charismatic leader in great tension with the sect's beliefs and wider society. The third stage is denominationalisation, the Protestant ethic effect, and the coolness of the second generation means that passion disappears. The fourth stage is establishment. The sect becomes more world-accepting and the tension with wider society reduces, and in the final stage, further schism occurs, which results when a more zealous and less privileged members break away to find a new sect and the cycle starts again. In evaluation, Wilson argues that not all sects follow the patterns above, and whether or not they do so depends on how they answers the question, what shall we do to be saved? The conversionists, to be saved, they have to convert as many people as possible, whereas the Adventists await the second coming of Christ, and to be saved, they must separate themselves from the corrupt world. So because this separatism puts them in conflict with wider society, they don't become a denomination, where the conversionists, the evangelists, do. Further evaluation, some sects such as the Amish, the Mormons and the Quakers have survived over generations despite being world-rejecting, I suppose. But instead of becoming a denomination, they've become an established sect. However, he does predict with globalization and the increase in technology will make it harder to keep them isolated. He also points out that with globalization, it'll make it easier for sects to recruit in the third world who are where there's a high level of deprived who the message will appear to. So what about the growth in the New Age? And you can fill in activity 4. New Age actually covers activities and belief that have become widespread since the 1980s. Heelas estimates there are at least 2,000 activities in the UK, and they tend to be either organised audience or client cults, and they focus on self-spirituality. So instead of turning to external religions, they look inside themselves to find, so they become more spiritual, and detraditionalisation. So they want to value personal experiences to uncover the truth for themselves and within themselves. So according to John Drain, the appeal of the New Age movement is due to a shift in postmodernism. One feature is a loss of faith in the meta-narratives and the claims to have the truth. Science promised to bring us progress to a better world, but instead it has given us war, genocide, environmental destruction and global warming. So people have lost faith, firstly, in religion, and also secondly, in the experts and professionals such as science and doctors. So as a result, they are turning to New Age spiritualism. So Bruce notes that the New Age beliefs and often softer versions of the more demanding and self-disciplined traditional religions such as Buddhism have been watered down so that self-centered Westerners can digest them a little bit. So this explains why New Age activities are often audience or client cults. They make fewer demands on their followers. And they see this New Age as a pick and mix spiritual shopping, or very typical in a late modern society. Healer sees the New Age and modernity as linked in 4 ways, and you can summarise them below into the table that you have got in your booklet. As a source of identity, becoming a consumer culture, as a response to rapid social change, and as a response to a decline in organised religion. So just make sure you fill in your booklet on page 9. So in summary, you should have completed up to the end of page 10. Have a little bit of a go at the exam skills, so look at the 10 mark and the longer answer questions and use the space to plan answers to summarise and apply what you have just learnt. If needs be, go back and review. Okay, thank you for listening, and there is one more video tutorial that you need to watch just to complete your booklet. Okay, thank you.